Welcome to Infinite Sports on this Saturday evening. I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder along with Ben Upson. This is the Super Bowl preview show. So, what we'll do first is we'll recap the championship games from a couple weeks ago, give our thoughts on those, and then we'll talk about the Super Bowl itself and who we have winning the game. So, first, Ben, how are you doing tonight?
Kenny doing great. Hard to believe that we have already reached grand, the grandest game of all the championship games, the Super Bowl. Um, can't wait to really watch it unfold, man. And we're gonna break it down. But two new faces to the scene, or at least two new teams that we haven't seen on this stage in a little bit, especially the Orange Bunch from Cincinnati.
That's very true. That is very true. So, first, like I said, we'll go recap the championship games, give our thoughts on those, and then we'll get into the Super Bowl. So, we'll start off with the AFC Championship game. The Cincinnati Bengals defeated the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead 27 to 24. This game looked like it was over in the first half. The Chiefs were up by as much as 21 to 3. Then the Bengals got a touchdown, a Samaje Perine 40-yard touchdown on a screen pass, 41 between like 41 44 yards, something like that, for a touchdown, made it 21 to 10. Then curious decision by the Chiefs in the first half. Time was expiring. They had no timeouts left. Mahomes thought they had a timeout left, but they didn't. Rather than taking the points and going up 24 to 10, the Chiefs elected to try to get 7 points, and Mahomes dumped the ball off to Tyreek Hill, and he got tackled a couple yards short of the goal line. So the Chiefs did not cash in on that possession right before the end of the first half. And on that play, Mahomes could have ran the ball to the right side and scored a touchdown there, but he didn't see that. So that was a curious decision there. And that kind of changed the momentum of the game as the Bengals, they looked like a different team in the second half, and Mahomes looked like a different quarterback in the second half. He threw two interceptions. I think he had 55 passing yards in the second half. And yeah, they only scored 3 points in the second half, the Chiefs. The Bengals, they tied the game. They had the lead at one point, and the Chiefs were able to put together a drive to tie the game. And one of the craziest things was Mahomes actually almost fumbled before that. He had plenty of time to throw the ball, but was trying to do too much and ended up getting sacked and losing the ball. But thankfully, one of the linemen for the Chiefs jumped on the ball to recover it. Butker kicked the field goal. The Chiefs won the coin toss, and I thought the game was over then. I thought it was going to be a repeat of what happened the previous week against Buffalo, and that was not the case. Mahomes almost threw an interception on every pass that he threw. The first pass I thought could have got picked off. The second one definitely should have been picked off. Eli Apple dropped an interception. And then finally, that long pass to Tyreek Hill that got deflected and then picked off by, I believe it was Von Bell. And he took it back to almost midfield or around, I think, the 40-yard line. And then the Bengals got into field goal range, and Evan McPherson kicked the game-winning field goal. And the Bengals went on to the Super Bowl in the game that they will be playing tomorrow night. So the biggest thing from this game was I just don't understand what happened to the Chiefs. In the first half, they were running the ball effectively with McKinnon, and it just looked like it was going to be pure domination. The Chiefs were going up and down the field. They were cashing in. They were getting touchdowns. Mahomes looked great. And then in the second half, everything changed. And, Ben, we often like to joke about it and talk about it even, on a radio show as well. And I love to say it, the Chiefs lollygag. And for me, this game was like the reverse lollygag because the Chiefs were so focused in the first half and they looked like they were on their way to another Super Bowl. And then in the second half, Mahomes was holding on to the ball too long, and that almost costed them, losing the game before overtime because Mahomes fumbled the ball, and they probably wouldn't have had the opportunity. They wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to kick the field goal with Butker if the Bengals recovered that fumble. So I don't know what happened. They went away from the running game too. They looked like a completely different team, and this was a epic choke by the Chiefs. I did not see this coming at all, and this really hurts Patrick Mahomes' legacy. This was probably his worst loss of his career, honestly. Having a 21-3 lead and that gets evaporated like that, and you can't even put up more than 3 points at home. That's just I don't even know what to say to that. But give the Bengals credit. You know, even when they were down big, they found a way to come back. Their defense is very underrated, and we'll talk about it when we preview the game. We'll preview the Super Bowl as well. Getting those 2 interceptions off of Mahomes. The other interception, I mean, that interception to B.J. Hill and Ben. B.J. Hill, can you tell me just quickly, what team did B.J. Hill used to play for?
Oh, well, Kenny, that would be the one and only New York Football Giants.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we traded him for an offensive lineman that really did not produce for us. So the Giants lost that trade. But yeah, BJ Hill got that interception, and I think that set up the tying touchdown to Jamar Chase, and then they went for 2, and Trent Taylor got that. So I don't know what Mahomes was doing on that play either, but it was just a very sloppy second half. I mean, I really cannot wrap my head around that performance by the Chiefs in the second half. It was a complete 180 because they looked like the team to beat in that game. I really don't know what to say. They just looked like world beaters in the first half. That's really what I was trying to say. And they looked like they were on their way to another Super Bowl, but that just was not the case. And now the Bengals are playing in the Super Bowl, and we'll see what happens. So that's my thoughts on the championship game. Ben, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think you really mentioned it really well, Kenny. Simply put, this was a tale of two halves. We say it all the time as just a fun saying, but this is exactly what it was in this game. The fact that the Bengals were down 21-3 in this game, literally had no semblance of offense outside of that one field goal drive in the early part of the game in the first quarter. We thought that this game could have already been over when the Chiefs went up 21-3. And it looked that way. I mean, the Chiefs come out 3 consecutive drives that end in touchdowns, 11 for 84 yards, 7 for 75, and 8 for 72. So those are 3 efficient drives right there in the first half. And, we mentioned it. You said it, that what really, I think, was the most controversial play of the entire half was when the Chiefs are up 21-10 after the Bengals just got a touchdown from Samaje Perine. That's right. That was that little screen dump off that actually turned into a touchdown for about 40 yards. That was awesome. This play changed the whole momentum of the game. I really think so, because once again, the Chiefs come out for their 4th drive of the half. They're marching down the field again. There's only a minute left. They get all the way down into the red zone. And let's not forget, so Eli Apple has that pass interference in the end zone, which really sets this whole series up at the 1-yard line. So with 9 seconds left, the Chiefs have, 2 plays to run. And we assumed, well, one of them should be a field goal, right? Even if you're at the 1-yard line. But so Mahomes throws a pass out of the end zone on 1st and goal. So the clock reads 5 seconds. And yes, it's definitely tricky to decide if you want to kick the field goal or if you want to run another play. But the Chiefs decide we're going to run another play. And this is the absolute worst thing, because I don't know what in the world Patrick Mahomes was thinking. But why is the ball not going over the middle into the end zone? I'm sorry, you can't throw a little slant to the left to Tyreek Hill. That's not guaranteed to get in. I mean, because give credit to the Bengals defense. They read that play well. They blew it up. It was I want to say, was it Mike Hilton that blew that up, or was that was Eli Apple actually? It was Eli Apple. That's right. So after no less committing a pass interference penalty in the end zone to set the Chiefs up at the 1 yard line, you redeem yourself with getting a touchdown saving tackle at the 1 yard line. And I'm sorry, and Patrick Mahomes is calling timeout after the play. Like, what? Do you not realize that you had no timeouts left? I don't even think there was any time left on the clock anyways, so it probably wouldn't have mattered. But that was a blunder by the Chiefs. I mean, that was the difference of, going up 2 touchdowns or plus, if they got the touchdown. Instead, going into the locker room up 11, which is a touchdown with a 2 and a field goal. So the door was, pretty ajar for the Bengals going into the half. And then, they come out, they force the Chiefs to punt, and really nothing happens until, late in the third quarter. They cut it to 8 when Evan McPherson hits yet another field goal. Talk about a guy who's been unbelievable. And then that awful interception that Mahomes somehow let happen when B.J. Hill basically just swiped the ball away from him, and that really ended that for the Chiefs. So they had nothing going there. Bengals take advantage of the short field, get a great Jamar Chase touchdown in the back of the end zone. 2-point conversion ties it up at 21 apiece. And then once again, in the beginning of the fourth quarter, so Burrow gets intercepted by, I think it was L'Jarius Sneed. Yes, it was, right around midfield. And then you're thinking, oh, no. Well, this is a drive where the Chiefs might finally, wake up, put a big dagger in the Bengals, go on a touchdown drive. And nope, that doesn't happen. The Bengals stifle the Chiefs at midfield, and they're, forced to punt again. And then, so it's 24-21 after a field goal once again from McPherson from 52, by the way. I mean, Evan McPherson, all playoffs, hasn't just been making kicks. He's been making long-distance kicks as well. He's been doing a bit of it all for the special teams for the Bengals. And then, yes, not as little as 13 seconds, that's for sure, but the Chiefs did a nice job in terms of clock management down the stretch. They burnt up all of the remaining 6:04 and tied it with a short Butker field goal from 44. And so once again, we're going to overtime. And Kenny, this was the best part. So as soon as the Chiefs win the coin toss, all of a sudden you just get a tweet from Josh Allen. Pain. And it is the perfect tweet for that situation, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, here we go again. The Chiefs are going to win the game on a coin toss. Bengals won't even see the ball. Turns out that did not happen. Instead, Mahomes throws into double coverage looking for, I believe he was looking for Tyreek Hill, and Bell intercepts it. And all of a sudden, everything just turns right around in favor of the Bengals. And they're set up at midfield, and a nice, 9-play, 42-yard drive that set up who else but Evan McPherson. So back-to-back weeks, Evan McPherson kicks game-winning field goals to move the Bengals on. And this was for a Super Bowl, and that makes it all the more special. Getting a game-winning kick in any championship game is it's special. It is. And Evan McPherson is having a postseason for the ages, at least in terms of a kicker. Because if you just look at his stats, really, from this postseason, so he went 4 for 4 in the AFC Championship game, 4 for 4 against Tennessee, and 4 for 4 against Vegas. That's a perfect 12 for 12. And he's made 3 kicks from 50-plus yards. I mean, talk about unbelievable stuff from a rookie kicker out of Florida that's 22 years old. So got to give credit to him where it's due. And just the Bengals as a whole. Joe Burrow going out as cool as a cucumber, down 18 points. Didn't feel the pressure one bit, really. And it didn't show. It did not show. So, you know what? Awesome win for the Bengals in the AFC Championship. And they're going to the Super Bowl for the first time since 1988. How about that?
Yeah, definitely. It has been a long time for the Bengals, and we'll see what they could do in this game. So now let's move on to the NFC Championship game now between two division rivals, the San Francisco 49ers and the LA Rams. So the 49ers previously won the last 6 meetings, I believe, against the Rams. They won, they swept the season series in the regular season, previous 2 meetings. So, there's that saying, third time's a charm. And the Rams, they were able to get it done, winning 20-17. Now, the 49ers were up 17-7 at one point in this game. And who was the head coach of the 49ers? Kyle Shanahan. And he was a part of the 28-3 collapse in Super Bowl 51, with the Falcons, letting the Patriots come back in that game. Then a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, they were up 20-10 in the fourth quarter. And Mahomes and the Chiefs came back, scoring 21 unanswered. And in this game, did the same thing. Blew a 10-point lead, and they ended up losing by 3. And Jimmy Garoppolo, listen, the postseason, he really was not that good. This game, he did play better. This was probably his best playoff game, in my opinion, but it really wasn't that much. Their biggest play was that Deebo Samuel touchdown. And he was one of their best players this year. Well, he probably was their best player this year, offensively. But yeah, I mean, the 49ers, Garoppolo just did not do that much in this game. And the other thing is, you look on the other side, Matthew Stafford had a pretty good game, had that bad interception in the end zone, which I thought could have got returned to the house, honestly. And really what could have ended this game was Stafford throwing it up late in the game, and Tart, the corner for the 49ers, dropped the interception. And if he catches that, this game's probably over and the 49ers are probably going to the Super Bowl again. But he drops it, and that allowed the Rams to come back, win the game. Cooper Kupp had a big game, 2 touchdowns in the game. Stafford passed for over 330 yards. The Rams kind of struggled to run the football. Both teams struggled to run the football in this game. So it was kind of a defensive battle for the most part. There wasn't a lot of big plays in this game. Obviously, like I said, the Deebo Samuel touchdown, that was a big play, but that was just, Deebo, and his playmaking ability, because that was a wide receiver screen that Deebo took to the house. But yeah, this was a lower scoring game than the AFC Championship game. But in the end, for me, I feel like Matthew Stafford made the difference for the Rams this year. And even in this game, he does tend to turn the ball over. But I feel like if Jared Goff was in that situation, same thing with the divisional round. I'm pretty sure I said that too when we did our divisional recap as well. I feel like if Jared Goff played in this game, I do not think that the Rams win this game. I don't. I feel like Matthew Stafford makes a difference for the Rams. And like I said, he can turn the ball over, but you know what? I think he makes up for it. And they got Cooper Kupp, who's the offensive player of the year. And OBJ had over 100 yards receiving in this game as well. He's made a difference too. I just feel like, when you look at the Rams, they're a good team. They're a good team. And, the other thing that helps is they got a really good defense. And that's something that Stafford did not have in Detroit, was a good defense for the most part. So, yeah, the Rams, they finally get that monkey off their back when it comes to beating the 49ers. And, yeah, they move on, and they will be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl. But overall, both championship games, for me, were pretty good. They were well-played games. And, yeah, we'll see what happens now with the Super Bowl. So that's really my thoughts with the NFC Championship game. Ben, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Kenny, very well said. I echo a lot of those points about, the way things shaped up for Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers. You kind of had the feeling that at one point Jimmy was going to get burned. Didn't you think so? I mean, the way that Jimmy Garoppolo played throughout the playoffs, it's really unfathomable how the 49ers even got to the NFC Championship, because in the postseason, in those 3 games, Jimmy G throws for just 535 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. That shows you how big the 49ers defense and special teams, carried them throughout the playoffs. It's true. I mean, the 49ers walk away only surrendering 44 points over 3 games, which is really impressive. It's just a matter of the 49ers didn't do enough offensively to win this game. And you know what, Kenny, you bring up a salient point. If Jared Goff is still on the Los Angeles Rams, they aren't winning this game. I would have to agree with that. And I didn't even really think of it from that point of view. But I mean, just going through this game, it's like you have a feeling that Matthew Stafford threw for 337 yards with a pair of touchdowns. And those were both, of course, to Cooper Kupp, which once again, just incredible. The season that he's been having. He obviously was just shy of 2,000 yards in the regular season. He had 16 touchdowns and 145 receptions, which ranked first in all 3 of those categories during this year in the league. So Cooper Kupp is a once in a lifetime, receiver, and he is having an unbelievable year. And it's going to be interesting to see what his impact, of course, is in the Super Bowl tomorrow. But at the same time, he certainly made his impact in this NFC Championship game. We can't forget, though, also, Kenny, so Deebo Samuel, just the season that he had was crazy. The fact that the 49ers basically transformed him into a running back for the second half. It's just it's awesome. It's great to have one of those dual threat players, and that's exactly what Deebo was. He was a wide receiver this season, and he was a running back, and he actually had a rushing touchdown in this game from, I think it was like 25 yards, I think, early in the game. Was it Deebo? Oh no, excuse me. Never mind. It was not a rushing touchdown. It was actually a receiving touchdown, 44 yards. I was wrong there on that. But so that had tied the game up at 7. And what I think was awesome too is that, the Rams put up a 10-minute drive in the first half, and that wears a defense down a lot. And that was definitely, I think, something to make note of in that first half. It was 18 plays, 97 yards, 9:33. That's an impressive drive down the field. Obviously, what stands out the most is obviously after the 49ers go up 17-7 on that George Kittle touchdown, which was a nice catch in the end zone, by the way, to put them up by 10. The Rams respond with their own touchdown later after that, 7 plays, 75 yards on the next drive. That cuts it to 3. And then the play, oh boy, the play that is going to, forever haunt the 49ers is that Jaquiski Tart drops the most wide open interception that I've seen in a very long time. And look, while that wasn't going to necessarily, wrap the game up by any means, it wasn't. That is one of those plays where you just go back and you could rewatch it 100 times and wonder how in the world did I not get that? Because that was ridiculous. I mean, it was in his hands, no less. Even Joe Buck said, and it's picked, no dropped. It's like, oh my gosh. It's like that's one of those plays that's just going to haunt the 49ers from, the ending of how the season ended. Like I said, I'm not going to say that it was going to change the outcome, but it would have aided them for sure at that point of the game. And then, of course, we remember the way that it shaped up. So Matt Gay ties it up at 17. The 49ers are then forced to punt right off after that. They couldn't produce any offense down the stretch in going into that fourth quarter. And then, of course, after, they go up by 3 because Matt Gay kicks another, go-ahead field goal, which ultimately turned into the game winner. This gave me Kyler Murray vibes, Kenny, when he flicked it out of the end zone against the Rams in the wild card round. I thought that interception was bad. I think Jimmy G's was just as worse because that was a hideous interception. And that sealed the deal and put the nail in the coffin for the 49ers. And perhaps Jimmy G's career in San Francisco, because we can't forget the 49ers put a lot of stock in Trey Lance. And in order for that whole plan to go into action, 49ers are going to need to see Trey Lance at the helm. And that's why I think this was also the final game of Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco. So it's a tough way to go out. It really is. Don't get me wrong. But give credit to the Rams and Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford definitely does make a difference on this offense. It's clear that while somehow Jared Goff took them, to the Super Bowl just 3 years ago, albeit a very controversial pass interference call and a stout defense like there is this year, Matthew Stafford is the better quarterback. It's absolutely true. And now here he is in his first ever Super Bowl, along with Joe Burrow. And so you got to give credit where it's due. The LA Rams put up one whale of a performance throughout this postseason, and especially in that Bucs game. And they have every right to be on the NFL's biggest stage here in this Super Bowl 56.
Yep, and once again, well said. So now we transition to the game, the Super Bowl. So yeah, we got the Cincinnati Bengals and the Rams. Don't think a lot of people predicted this. At the start of the season, maybe if you were filling out a bracket for the playoffs, maybe you had this as a possible outcome. But definitely if you were predicting this in the regular season, hopefully you put a bet on that. So yeah, we got these two teams. I think for the first time, we don't really have like a villain in the Super Bowl. Both teams are likable for the most part. You want to see both of these quarterbacks win a ring. And, for me, I'm just hoping for a good game because last year's Super Bowl was a disappointment, to say the least. So for this game here, it's going to be tough for the Bengals because of their offensive line. And I've been talking about it on other shows as well that I've been doing over the course of the week. That offensive line matchup against the Rams defensive line just does not sit well with me. And considering that Joe Burrow in the divisional round got sacked 9 times against the Titans, and I think we could both say that the Rams defensive line and front seven and defense in general is better than the Titans. And no disrespect to the Titans defense, their defense was a solid unit this year. But when you're going up against Aaron Donald and Von Miller, who's won a Super Bowl, and your offensive line, which has not been one of the best, I see problems there. I really do. Now, do I think Joe Burrow is going to complain about that and fold because of that? Absolutely not, because in the divisional round, he kept getting up, kept throwing the football, and they were still able to win the game. Same thing in the Chiefs game. They were still able to come back. Joe Burrow still, kept swinging that thing, and, they found themselves in a tie ball game, and they ultimately won the game. So I'm not really worried about Joe Burrow mentally if, pressure is getting to him. However, I am worried about him physically if he's constantly under pressure and getting hit in this game. Because last year, really the reason why he got injured is because he didn't have an O-line. And I think regardless of the outcome, the Bengals need to prioritize getting this man a solid offensive line. Even if they win the Super Bowl, they need to address the offensive line. Now, they got a lot of talent on this offense. Jamar Chase was incredible this year, had an incredible rookie season. T. Higgins is a really good number 2. Tyler Boyd's a good number 3. I think CJ Uzama is supposed to play in this game, so that's good to get him back. Joe Mixon has been one of the best running backs in football this year. So I like their offense a lot. And the other thing is, I really like the Bengals defense too. Their defense is underrated. They got some playmakers there as well. You got Trey Hendrickson, who they got over from the Saints. He's been one of the better pass rushers. Von Bell in the secondary. Jesse Bates as well. So you got 2 solid safeties. You also got DJ Reader up front. Sam Hubbard as well. They got playmakers on this defense. And, that's kind of one of the reasons why the Bengals are in this position as well, is because of their defense. Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. Credit to the Bengals defense. They played extremely well in the second half against Patrick Mahomes in that offense. And I also forgot to mention B.J. Hill as well. B.J. Hill got that interception that set up them getting the touchdown and tying the game. So they got a lot of good players on this defense. Now, are they household names? Not necessarily like an Aaron Donald, like a Von Miller, like a Jalen Ramsey, like an Eric Weddle even, talking about the Rams defense. But this defense is pretty good. And, like I said, with Burrow getting under pressure and dealing with that defense, that is going to be a problem. But you know what? If the Bengals defense can keep it close, then you know what? They still got a chance to win this game. But for me, I don't know. I don't like the matchup with the offensive line going up against the Rams defensive line. Now, on the other side for the Rams, I feel like Stafford's got the better matchup because he's got the better offensive line. I think Cooper Kupp, for this year is better than the wide receivers of the Bengals. I would take him over Jamar Chase, and I think most people would do the same. Odell Beckham Jr., I'd probably take over T. Higgins. He has looked really good since coming over from Cleveland. He's looked like a different player. He's looked like the player similar to how he was with the Giants. And then you also got Van Jefferson, who, is kind of that boomer bust player. He'll have that long, 50-yard reception for a touchdown. But then other than that, he really doesn't do that much. But I like their receiving core. Tyler Higbee, their tight end, I don't think is going to be playing in this game, so we're going to see more of Kendall Blanton. He scored a touchdown in the divisional round against the Bucks. And then you got the running backs, and I think Darrell Henderson might be active for this game, possibly. I'm not sure, but if he is, you're going to have him, you're going to have Sony Michel, and you're going to have Cam Akers. So you could definitely mix and match your running backs, give the Bengals defense different looks, keep your guys fresh, and try to wear this defense down. And I think that's one of the keys in the game for the Rams is run the football, because the Chiefs were doing that effectively in the first half in the championship game, and then they stopped doing that. I feel like if the Rams are able to establish the run and, give this defense different looks, putting in Michelle, putting in Akers, putting in Henderson, confusing the defense and wearing them down, then you know what? I give them a great chance to win this game, even more. So that's another thing. Now it's going to be interesting to see what they do, this Bengals defense, they do to try to, contain Cooper Kupp, because it's going to be really hard to do that. And then of course, you got OBJ who's going to be in single coverage. So, they got their hands full, the Bengals defense. And listen, looking on the other side again, Jamar Chase going up against Jalen Ramsey, that's going to be a very fun matchup to look at. I think it's going to be a tough matchup for Jamar Chase, but the one thing is Jamar Chase is really fast. He's got speed, and I feel like that could give Jalen Ramsey a little bit of a problem, but I think it's still going to be a tough matchup. I think they will both win their battles during the game. I think Jamar Chase will have an impact, but Jalen Ramsey will break up a couple of plays as well. So that's really my thoughts there. And I expect Stafford to play well. So, the other thing too is both quarterbacks can turn the ball over. Stafford had 17 interceptions, Burrow had 14. So they could definitely, throw some interceptions in this game as well. I definitely expect some turnovers in this game because they've had a couple of bad interceptions over the course of the playoffs. So that's really my thoughts from both teams. So Now, my prediction, I think the Rams are going to win this game. I think they're the better team. And, like I said, I just don't like the Bengals' offensive line going up against the Rams' defense. Now, will I be surprised if the Bengals somehow pull it out? Absolutely not, because they've really been defying all odds throughout these playoffs. They beat the top two seeds in the AFC to get to this point. And, the Bengals' defense is pretty good. So they could definitely keep it close. But I just like the Rams better. I want Stafford to get his first ring. I just feel like they have the overall better team. And if they could do what the Chiefs were doing in the first half and run the ball effectively and, wear down this Bengals defense, then that gives them an even better chance to win the game. But really, I just think the Rams are the better team. But I won't be surprised with whatever happens. So I say the Rams win. I don't want to say it's going to be a blowout. It could definitely turn into that, but I think it's going to be a closer game. I think the Rams win by a touchdown. So that's my prediction.
All right. There you have it. Good stuff, Kenny. I can definitely see where you're coming from, from both sides. I see that argument, this is the Super Bowl. I mean, and anything can happen. It doesn't matter how good or how bad that you could possibly be. It doesn't matter. It all gets thrown out the window. This is the one game for it all. And sure enough, here we are. It's the Los Angeles Rams and Cincinnati Bengals kicking off at 6:30 Super Bowl Sunday, NBC. And if you're not on your TV, you can stream it on Peacock, wherever you might be. I believe for free, too. I don't think you need the premium price for it, but I'm not sure. Anyways, so, yeah, the way that this game is shaping up right now, and I'll get into it a little bit here from a betting perspective, since this is the biggest gambling day in all of sports for good reasons. So where we're at right now, according to DraftKings Sportsbook, the line has been switching between 4 and 4.5 all week, and now on Saturday night, at the time of recording this, it is still at 4. The Los Angeles Rams are a 4-point favorite. The over/under is 48.5. And on the money line, the Rams are minus 190, Bengals plus 160. Of course, we do know that Tyler Higbee is out for this game. Obviously, the big tight end there for the Rams. And it actually does look like CJ Uzama is expected to play, but still for the moment, he is listed as questionable. But we've seen some encouraging signs, I think, throughout the week leading up here that it looks like CJ Uzama could definitely potentially play for the Bengals. So battle of tight ends. And, of course, the only other one is just one of the backup linemen for the Rams, Joseph Noteboom, is out with a chest injury. Higbee's injury is a knee. So obviously, both these teams are all pretty healthy coming in, as they should be. It's the final game of the regular season, or the regular season of the season, I should say, not the regular season. That was already a month ago. But look, the way I'm seeing this shape up, it's really interesting. You feel like for a Super Bowl, the line should be around 3 or 3.5. Well, it's been a little bit higher than that, and I'm personally surprised. Look, we've been just talking about it on this show. So you look at it from a Rams perspective. This is definitely the better team on paper. The line makes sense in terms of who's favored. I just felt like the Rams would be a little bit less in favor since it's, the biggest, game in not just the NFL, but perhaps in all of sports. So, this is a huge day for gambling, like I said. And I would have expected this to be 3 or 3.5, but I'm not Vegas. They know stuff that we don't, and that's how it always goes. The Rams are the better team on paper, though. Like we were talking about, Matthew Stafford is a key ingredient in terms of a better quarterback than Jared Goff out there in LA, and that's a prime reason why the Rams have found themselves here. Cooper Kupp has had a historic season, one that should be remembered forever. Almost 2,000 receiving yards and 16 touchdowns. And let's also not forget the Rams have a three-headed monster on defense because this year, in the I got to look up the regular season, actually not the postseason, but between Aaron Donald, Von Miller, and Leonard Floyd, okay, between those three, you don't want any of them coming at you because they're going to give you nightmares. Von Miller had 9.5 sacks this season, along with Leonard Floyd, and Aaron Donald had 12.5. And now, of course, we do know that the defensive player of the year did not actually go to Aaron Donald this year. It did go to TJ Watt of the Pittsburgh Steelers because he had 22.5 sacks, which broke Michael Strahan's single-season record, of course, with the extra week. But that still does not undermine Aaron Donald's value one bit whatsoever. He still had a fantastic season. And these three are going to get through that Bengals offensive line at least a couple of times because we've seen Joe Burrow get killed almost all season. He got sacked 51 times in the regular season, in case you didn't know that, which that is a ton of pressure for a quarterback to be dealing with over the course of 17 games. So think about that. That's a 3-sack average per game. And the fact that the Bengals have actually found themselves all the way here to the Super Bowl is impressive. But that just shows you, how mobile Joe Burrow has actually been throughout this season. And, how efficient he's been in terms of dealing with pressure and not letting it get in his head. It's true. So the way I'm looking at this, though, is who's also had the easier road this postseason. It's tough to determine that because no game is ever easy in the postseason. And I mean, the argument's there for both sides. The Rams go into Tampa and beat Tom Brady. And then, they fight it out once again with the 49ers in the NFC Championship game to get here. As for the Bengals, they go on the road both games. They go to Tennessee, no less, the number one team, pick off Ryan Tannehill 3 times. Somehow Joe Burrow gets sacked 9 times, which is a single postseason game high, and they win that game. And then you go into Arrowhead, you're down 18 points, and you come back and win the game in overtime. I mean, talk about resiliency, and that's something that the Cincinnati Bengals have shown throughout these playoffs. And I mean, just imagine if Tom Brady somehow came back down 27-3 against the Rams. Just think about that too. It's really crazy to think. So really, who has had the more difficult road? It's really, really difficult to narrow it down. Like I was just saying, both sides have a great argument. But I think with the way that the Bengals have gotten here, in terms of especially looking at 2 weeks ago at Arrowhead and the AFC Championship, that's the game that just stands out to me the most because it's like, well, you were down 18 points to Patrick Mahomes at home at one of the loudest stadiums in the league, and you come out and shut him down in the second half. Like, absolutely shut him down. They could have actually held the Chiefs scoreless, period, if it weren't for Patrick Mahomes recovering that fumble late. It's true. It's really true. So if you had to pick a side in terms of potentially who's had a little bit of a rougher road here, probably the Bengals, just because of how they've had to get here, But look, what it's going to come down to on both sides of the ball, the Bengals are going to have to deal with pressure again. The offensive line is going to have to do their best to stop those 3 guys that I was mentioning, Leonard Floyd, Aaron Donald, and Von Miller. And that's going to be their key to success, really. If they go down more than 10 points in this game, which is actually very possible based off the situation, I really wonder what it's going to be like in terms of the crowd discrepancy, because obviously we know both LA teams, the Chargers and the Rams, have had trouble, attracting fans there. And this is the Super Bowl, after all. This is considered a neutral site. The Rams are technically the road team anyways, but that doesn't matter when you're in the Super Bowl, really. So it will be interesting to see that from a crowd perspective. But I really think this is one time and one team where if the Bengals get down a lot on this Rams defense, it's going to be really hard to try and claw their way back into this game. So the keys is obviously hopefully the offensive line holds up, and really just don't fall behind by that much because it's going to be tough for them to keep pace. And then on the Rams side, move the ball on this defense because the Bengals defense, although they have definitely shown better signs in the playoffs, they're still not as good of a unit as the Rams. I think we and a lot of other people know that. And if they're able to move the ball, easily on this Bengals defense, it's going to be a long night, a very long night. And that's really their primary key, I'd say. I'd also say, see if you can get the running game more involved as well, because in the NFC Championship game against the 49ers actually did a really good job overall of shutting down the Rams rushing attack. Cam Akers was limited to only 48 yards. He's been under 50 yards just about every single game in the playoffs, so far. 55 against the Cardinals and then 48 against both Tampa and San Francisco. So that's really what the Bengals are going to have to work on, keep limiting the run as well in terms of defense. But for the Rams, they got to try and, get that going because, again, this is a Bengals defense that definitely isn't as strong as the other team in the LA Rams, that's for sure. So, and look, now in terms of the pick, okay, it's very difficult as always. It's the Super Bowl after all. Anything can happen, like we've been saying. But I'm going to side with the Cincinnati Bengals. I'll come right out and say it, okay? The way that they've gotten here has really been hard to fathom. Let's not forget, too, that Joe Burrow can actually make history tomorrow. Joe Burrow, I believe, can become the first quarterback to ever win a Heisman Award, the College Football National Championship, and the Super Bowl. I don't think anyone has ever done that. I'm pretty sure he would be the first quarterback to ever do that. Yes, that's right. I'm now looking it up, and that's true. So how unbelievable is that? For a team that has been, clawing through some games. I mean, we can't forget that at one point, in the regular season, the Bengals are, 7-5. Or actually 7-6 after they had lost to the 49ers in overtime in Cincinnati back in the regular season. And, they were staring down the reality of potentially losing hold of the division and potentially falling down out of the playoffs. It was a real possibility back then. And the fact that they stepped up to the plate and won 3 out of their final 4 games, including that so crucial win against the Kansas City Chiefs, and, of course, Joe Burrow chucking the ball for just over 950 combined yards between the Ravens and the Chiefs. Wow. Talk about a run down the stretch that Joe Burrow had. He's also had 4 touchdowns in his 3 postseason games and just over 840 passing yards, which is a solid number still for a postseason. Absolutely. And so that's why I'm really liking the Cincinnati Bengals. And I know I just said it off the top, Kenny. I said that the Rams are the better team on paper, and you said it as well. But something just tells me that the Bengals can do it one more time. Because when you get to the Super Bowl, there's a whole new level of motivation and determination. And this is it. This is for all the marbles. And obviously the question is just how will that Bengals offensive line hold up? That's exactly what the primary key is going to be to this game. Plain and simple. That's your one key. It's sitting on a silver platter right there. And that's the only way the Bengals are going to be able to stay relevant and have a shot to win the Super Bowl. They're going to have to contain the Rams defense as much as they can. And on the defensive side of the ball, they're going to have to try and take away Matthew Stafford's abilities. They're going to have to guard Cooper Kupp well down the field. And then Odell Beckham, who's really turned it around in LA, is another threat at wide receiver. So the Bengals are going to have a lot on their hands. But I do like them to win the game outright 27-24. And that's who I'm taking for Super Bowl 56. And then just quickly, Kenny, for a couple of big, prop bets that are out there, obviously right now. So in case you're wondering, for some of the bigger, betting analysis out there. So in terms of first touchdown scorer, obviously Cooper Kupp leads the way at plus 500. He is the favorite. Behind him, both the running backs, Cam Akers and Joe Mixon, are at plus 750. Jamar Chase at 800, Odell at 900. And then a couple of dark horses potentially. T. Higgins at 1,200 and Darrell Henderson and Sony Michel both at 1,600. Those are the leading favorites for first touchdown scorer. Personally, I really think that, the gamble is worth it with Jamar Chase at plus 800 for the first one. Because I think if the Bengals get the ball first, they can certainly go down and score on the Rams. Obviously, taking Kupp or Akers is a safe first touchdown bet as well. But not fantastic odds compared to Jamar. I would honestly consider taking Jamar at 800 or even perhaps Odell Beckham Jr. at 900. Either one of those could honestly be a good bet as well. But for my analysis of it, I would take Jamar Chase at 800 just because I think if the Bengals get the ball first, they can certainly go down and score. Now, if the Rams get the ball first, I don't know. That could be a different story potentially, but I would take Jamar for the value at 800 because it's decent value, at least in a Super Bowl, in terms of first touchdown. And as for the over-under, of course, I'm on the over, 48.5. It's not going to go over by much, in my opinion. That's why I'm keeping it 27-24 in favor of the Bengals. I think 48.5 is definitely a little bit generous for a Super Bowl. But then again, like I've been saying throughout this entire show, Kenny, it's all going to hinge on, how the Bengals offensive line holds up. If the Rams defense is able to get to Burrow consistently, I mean, good night. The Bengals can get blown out if the Rams defense gets to Burrow time after time. I can't see the Bengals winning this game if that happens, but I'm banking on it not to happen. I really think that the Bengals might have something in them. And let's see, also Super Bowl MVP odds are out as well, of course. Leading the way is Matthew Stafford, actually, if I could actually find it. Super Bowl MVP odds. It was on DraftKings earlier today. Well, anyways, let me go to receiving props quickly. So these are just like really the first times that I'm looking at the odds, but at first glance too, in terms of rushing yards, so Cam Akers over-under is set at 63.5. That's definitely a little bit low for most running backs, but granted, I just listed off. Cam Akers has only eclipsed 50 yards once, and that was against the Cardinals, and not by much. He got 55. I think he's going to be able to get over 63.5 because I think potentially if the Rams are up in this game late, they're going to run the ball more with him, of course. And it's a good bet because the Rams obviously want to try and get, their running game going. And I said one of the keys for the Bengals is to, limit Cooper Kupp and, the other receivers that the Rams have available to them. So I would take Akers over 63.5 in terms of rushing yards. That's a good play. I also think Joe Mixon over 60.5 is a good one as well, just because I think both these teams can perhaps find some success running the ball But at the same time, that could be close with Mixon because obviously the Bengals could potentially have to pass a lot down the stretch. So that's gonna be a little bit tricky for sure. And then the receiving props. This is where it gets really interesting, of course. And I think just a couple plays to consider. Cooper Kupp, he is setting a new level of over-unders because his over-under is 104.5, which is ridiculously high for a Super Bowl. That's for sure. But if there's one wide receiver that could potentially do it, it would certainly be Cooper Kupp. Now, it's definitely a little bit of a riskier pick here, but I would, at least at first glance, this is all at first glance really for me. Tailor fade as much as you want, but I would actually take Cooper Kupp's under 104.5. I think he's going to just miss out. It's just a ton of yards to take for a Super Bowl. And you know what? You watch, he'll probably get a 75-yard breakaway touchdown after I make this pick, but I just can't see it. 104.5 is so many yards. And that's why I think I would take Kupp under 104.5 for that. Jamar Chase, set at 78.5. This is interesting. With the increased volume that I think he's going to be seeing, especially if the Bengals go down this game, Jamar Chase's over 78.5 is also a very good play. I would certainly think so. Just because, again, if the Bengals go down, they're going to be throwing a lot. So, simply put, there. And then, so one more thing also that I was looking for. Just quickly in terms of passing props. Joe Burrow over under at 279.5. Matthew Stafford at 284.5. This is interesting because it's so tough to determine the course of this game. I would personally say Matthew Stafford's over is probably a better play at 284.5. because he's got deep ball threats with Cooper Kupp and now Odell Beckham Jr., who's really had a great, run at it here with the Rams. So I think Matthew Stafford's over at 284.5 is a good play, I think, there. And as for Joe Burrow, I can't say that he would go over 279.5 just with the threat of the Rams defense, because if they get to him, good night. Like I said, it's not going to be fun. Not going to be fun for Joe Burrow. So I would take Burrow's under at 279.5. And like I said, of course, these were just some first glances that I've really looked into the odds. I think before the game this afternoon here, Sunday afternoon, I'm going to actually try and drop a big card of some of the plays that I like. I'll probably be putting that on Twitter somewhere. So these were just really my first looks at the odds, Kenny. But if you're looking for more in-depth stuff, I'm going to look at the odds, of course, overnight tonight into tomorrow and see what else I think might be playable. But that's just what I'm thinking right now in terms of first glance. So there's a little bit of a look at it from the betting perspective.
All right. So a lot that you went over there. So if you're a betting person, well, there you go. You got some things that you could possibly look at to bet for tomorrow's game. So that's basically all we got for this show. Ben, do you have anything else to add before we wrap it up?
Yeah, Kenny, I'll just say one note to finish up. You know what? These are two fresher faces going at it tomorrow in the Super Bowl, and you got to enjoy these moments just as a whole in sports, because who knows if we'll see Rams-Bengals again for perhaps a long time. I don't think so. I think a lot of us expected at least the Bucs, Chiefs, or Packers to represent in this Super Bowl, but none of the heavyweights are in it. These are two underrated teams that have found their way to Los Angeles for Super Bowl 56. And I will say the Rams were definitely a little bit more of a favorite. We know that.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
With their defense, but the Bengals especially. They had the same odds as the Jaguars preseason to make it
Yeah.
to win the Super Bowl. So how about that? The Rams and the Bengals, you got to sit back and enjoy this one tomorrow, Kenny.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be, like I said, I hope it's going to be a good game. And yeah, it'll be the last football game or the last NFL game we'll have for 5 months. So with that, that's all we got for tonight. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next time recapping the Super Bowl and talking about some other NFL offseason stuff. So we'll have that within the coming week. So enjoy your Super Bowl, and I'm Kenneth Grunfelder along with Ben Upson signing off. Have a good night, and we'll see you next time.